Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hey, what's up, Lock Shoppers? Happy Friday, and welcome to the Lock Shop presented by our partners at Coolbet Canada. If you haven't already played at Coolbet, what are you waiting for? Get on over there and we'll hook you up. 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Use the promo code LOCKSHOP, and hopefully we'll fire off a few winners for you as we get ready for a big weekend in the National Football League. Andrew Patterson with you. No Dusty today. He is on the way to Winnipeg as we speak to call tomorrow's Bombers-Elks game as Winnipeg looks to officially clinch the West. If you want to check the Coolbet exclusives, we do have our award-winning CFL partner parlay ready to go all over the dogs and some big numbers in the Canadian Football League. And now we sort of got into that on yesterday's Lock Shop. Hit that up if you want. But with no Dusty today, we've always got a live bench here in the Lock Shop, and Pat Gregoire and Jake Boland-Moss joins us now to get ready to go. Patty, what's up?
Doing good. Still licking my wounds from the Patty's primetime parlay loss, but besides that, pretty good on bets. 3-1, 2-1 on my on the props that I gave out, and numbers never lie. The numbers came true, and the field goal over hit once again. It is Thursday night is for field goals. It's just deeming to be true.
Yeah,
five straight times now.
That field goal prop just is the gift that keeps on giving, especially on Thursday Night Football. And although the under sure would have been nice, for the Saints to go over 40 for the first time all season long in that fashion was not what we needed. But JBM, interesting game last night, and we'll get to Sunday in a second. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good, a couple big runs when he needed it. I'm not sure whether that injury was overblown, but man, the Saints, they just cannot get out of their own way at times. And I mean, that drop by Moreau at the end of the game, I mean, you just need to execute, and the Saints just simply haven't done that when they've needed to so many times this season.
Yeah, listen, I was happy with the result. I got that Jaguars regular season win total at 9.5. So, I mean, we're halfway home now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Dusty feels the same way with his, I think he has that Trevor Lawrence MVP. I don't know if he went with the win total as well, but yeah, I mean, the Saints, they can't get out of their own way sometimes. I think that's the problem with them. I was kind of jumping around between the Leafs, the football and some of the baseball. So, I didn't get to watch the game start to finish, but yeah, I mean, the thing is with that division, like the Saints are never really going to be out of it right up until the end of the season, because there's really no like runaway team in that division. I mean, it's the Falcons, the Bucks, the Saints, and the Panthers. So, there's still time to figure it out for them, but I definitely don't I don't see a big future on the Saints coming anytime soon for myself.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And as someone that I'll be honest, I thought Carr was going to be set up for a big game, and Pat, he listen, I don't know whether it was miscommunication, whether his receivers aren't paying attention and running the wrong routes, but he was quite vocal in his anger for some of his teammates last night. It wasn't a great look, especially when you're executing the way Carr is right now. And the crazy thing about this is they can't really move on from this. No matter what, he's on the books for $35 million next year in New Orleans. I mean, again, only one more year, but it's just such a huge expenditure and chunk of the salary cap. They got to find a way to figure it out. And as Jake mentioned, I mean, this division is there for the taking. That was only their third home game, but that's a team that usually has a great home advantage. I thought they got Jacksonville in a great spot. 2 games in London, coming back with no bye, short week. And it was there for the taking, and they didn't make it happen.
what an asshole. Like, what an asshole Derek Carr is. Like that one clip of him screaming at Olave, his young receiver, who's probably the future of this offense, for him for not continuing to run and go after that ball. Dude, you nuked the ball like 7 yards out of bounds. Even if he kept running, he wasn't going to be able to haul that in. And yes, maybe it was miscommunication. Yes, did they look a little out of sync? No doubt. I understand Derek Carr was frustrated. All in all, he really did not play that bad. He just couldn't make the throws when he needed to make them, which is kind of what you sign up with with Derek Carr. Is that not kind of the quarterback he has been? But one thing, if you are a Saints fan, as Jake mentioned, you're never out of it in this division. There really is no one in this division that scared me. Sure, the Bucks at the start of the year looked like a team maybe that could make some noise, but Carr was solid. 33 completions, had over 300 yards, had a touchdown. Looked like him and Kamara leading the game in rushing. I don't know what that would have paid, but it looks like Kamara's back in a big way. So the Saints aren't out of it. But man, like, what are you doing? A couple of times showing up as receivers, really not a good look. Especially like you said, they can't really get out of this. But Taysom Hill looked good in some situations yesterday. As nuts as it is to say, this team is not out of it, but they do need to figure something out offensively. And I think they kind of got something going here with Kamara, running out of the backfield, catching some more passes.
Under looked good early on, and then just sort of fell apart with those touchdowns coming into the second half, and ended up being a pretty high-scoring game. But as the huge said, at least we had field goals, and we had enough to get that over. What 123? It was nice. Shout out to Huge in chat, as well as Jim Johnson, who got in there first. VR Montenegro as well. What's going on? Lock shoppers, feel free to jump in on the chat. And if any new listeners or viewers have any AHL totals for tonight, we're here. Listener AHL totals are 1-0 in the lock shop this week. And not to Barry Horowitz myself too much, Jake, 4-0 on the daily picks. It's been a minute since we've had a full running of the table. And fingers crossed we can get that win tonight. And a bit of a quiet night. And we do have a CFL game, 2 baseball games, although the Astros, who I've been riding the last 2 days on the money line as slight underdogs both times. That's a 4:00 game our time this afternoon, so we'll probably get into the hockey. But it has been a good week with the daily picks, and hopefully that rubs off into the most important picks of the week, the best bets for the NFL.
Yeah, you've been on fire, man.
Yeah, Huss, hell of a job. I mean, I've been on the Astros the last 2 nights as well, so I've been riding with you. I was on my Phillies last night. They couldn't get it done. By the way, the slogan for the Phillies, for Jays fans who want to root for the Phillies, if you can't be them, join them. That's what I'm going with. That's what I've been telling my buddies. If you can't beat them, join them. So if you can't be the Phils, which we know we aren't, at least we can join the ride.
Hey, fellas, let's get to the games. I've got Dusty's picks. I've got my best bets. We'll get your leans. But considering we've got the Mafia going up against the Pats this week, Pat, of course, a card-carrying member of the Bills Mafia. Jake getting paid back for those decades of Super Bowl success. Now kind of feeling it right now. It's a weird game, though. Buffalo really has handled New England in recent history. I mean, the quarterback play, I think, is at the top of that list. But, Jake, where are we at right now with New England? I mean, they've had such dispiriting losses, and they're not just losing. They are getting their asses kicked right now. Is there any way they get up for this game? And we've got a real close one against a Buffalo team that did not look good at all playing Sunday night and being very, very fortunate to come out with a win over Tyrod Taylor and the Giants of all outfits.
Yeah, it feels like deja vu, but I hope they don't come out and play well against the Bills. I mean, they haven't looked good. The Pats haven't looked good all season, and another team that just continues to get in their own way. I already spoke about it last week. I'm looking ahead at the draft. I want a top pick in the draft. That's where I'm at. And the Bills, I'm sure, are looking to get the Pats back for all those years of torture that they gave them. So Yeah, I am actually on the Bills. I think -8.5. I don't think you could set the number high enough. I know it's divisional, and we always talk about how close these divisional games can get, but there's nothing that the Pats have shown me makes me believe that they can, cover a spread. Pat's loving this. I'm sure I can see him just reeling it in. Yeah, no, I'm taking the Bills. I think that's going to be probably my top pick of the week.
Pat,
I just fade the Pats.
Patty, I mean, fading the Pats has been a very good strategy as of late. I do wonder where you're at, though, in all seriousness, though, because the Bills did not look good at all. Josh Allen, after the game, looked just so exhausted. And as we said, they were incredibly fortunate to beat a decimated Giants team at home. They're going on the road to Foxborough. Patriots was going to say they in theory had a pretty good defense at one point. They haven't been playing very well, but do you have any hesitation when it comes to the Bills on this weekend, considering the spot and the way they looked on Sunday night?
I mean, they look bad. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but this is like historically one of the luckiest wins in NFL history. They were talking about it on Part of My Take this morning. A team to be outgained on the air, on the ground, missing 2 field goals. And Tyler Bass has been one of the most consistent players over the last 2 years. Like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for the Bills, but they still found a way to win. They didn't allow the Giants, who were actually moving the ball really well against the Bills. But the Bills' mantra for the last few seasons has been bend, don't break. And they didn't break once. Came up with some big stops in the red zone. Mind you, somewhere a little bit self-inflicted with coaching and just situational awareness plays from their quarterback. But hey, it is what it is. They're banged up. Like they are so banged up. They have injuries to important players, to depth players, and pretty much in every single facet of their defense. But luckily, their defense is deep. And they have been bending. They haven't been breaking. And luckily for them, they're going up against an inept offense in the New England Patriots. It does scare me. I don't bet this team anyways, because I do not bet the teams that I cheer for. But if I was, I would be hammering the Bills here. This is a get right spot for Buffalo. And this is the first time I've been able to say this as a Buffalo Bills fan. They have owned the Patriots in recent years. You are right. They have owned them. 4 straight wins against the Patriots, and all have been at least by 12 points. And now they get to go up against a Patriots team that is only averaging 11.7 points. They're going up against a Patriots team that is 1-5 and has been outscored by 80 points. You said that fading the Patriots has been very good. Fading the Patriots and Mac Jones as an underdog has been even better. They have not covered as an underdog in 11 straight games. This isn't me being the Zubaz wearing, table jumping, chicken wing eating, blue light drinking, Bills Mafia fan. This is me as a sports bettor telling you guys to go to Coolbet and bet the Bills -8.5, because Josh Allen and the Bills are going to run down Bill Belichick's throat.
Plus, are there any other games this weekend, or are we just gonna?
No, we're moving on. But I did want to get into that. Listen, because Dusty, and we're going to get to Dusty's picks in a minute. He's certainly on the Bills. I just didn't have that game. That was a bit of a stay away for me. I don't know. Maybe I was spooked by what we saw from Buffalo, but I think considering what we just heard from you guys, there's a pretty good chance that game makes it onto the partner parlay. Lock shoppers, if you're with us live on YouTube, hit us up with your favorite pick in the chat. Certainly money line, spread. We'll kind of talk about those as we get through. But as we get through this game, before I get to my picks and Dusty's, and then we can sort of grind in on a couple of parlays. Let me ask you, Pat, first. To me, the game of the week clearly is the Sunday nighter, the Dolphins and the Eagles. Dusty and I will tease this before we get to our picks, are going head to head on this one. Interested in your guys' thoughts on that one. Pat, I'll start with you. Philly 2.5-point home favorites in the Sunday nighter, coming off that stunning loss last week to the Jets.
This one's tough, man. This one I really can't get a read. I mean, obviously, when you look at the Dolphins, with the exception of, let's say, the two divisional matchups that they've had with the Patriots. And Jake, I know I just spent a good 2.5 minutes berating the Patriots, but they put up a really good fight against this Dolphins team, and the Bills dismantled this Dolphins team. But with the exception of those two games, they have just dominated in all facets of the game, especially offensively. On the flip side, the Eagles just haven't really looked like the Eagles, have they? Yes, they have that one loss. And yes, they're finding ways to win. And that's what good teams do. But they just haven't looked like a team that can keep up with this Dolphins offense. But this isn't stats, trends, diving into the numbers, whatever it may be. This is me just looking at two teams, looking at the home side, seeing it within a field goal. And I think the Eagles, maybe this is a game where they finally do flex their muscles. Jalen Hurts gets back to what he's doing. That offense starts to get moving. And let's not forget, this offense for Miami really struggled when the Bills brought the heat, and not blitzed, but just brought pressure from their front four. There isn't really a better pass rush than the Eagles. And I think that the fact that this defense is built to slow down the Dolphins, I kind of lean with the Eagles. With that being said, the fact that it is a standalone game, the fact that I really don't have a strong lead right now, I'm not betting the side on this. I might just take the over and have fun. You better believe I'm hammering a ton of props, but I haven't dove into that side yet. But you ask for a lean, I think I'm leaning Eagles here.
Jake, what about you for the Sunday nighter?
Yeah, I mean, Pat laid it out pretty well. I have a hard time picking either side right now. I have a lot of investment in fantasy in the Eagles, so I'm kind of hoping they show up for this one. You think about that Jets game, it might have been a look-ahead spot, right? I think they're wearing the Kelly Greens too. Kelly Greens at home. I'm betting the over for sure. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind. I might bet it right now. I'm getting on the over, no doubt. But yeah, I have a hard time picking either side. Like, we saw Miami go down 14-0 last week to the Panthers, and then I think they came all the way back and ended up covering double digits. And so it's like they can score, but at the same time, Miami has been prone to give up some points this season. I mean, look at that Bills game, for instance. Like, they got beat up pretty good. So if we're just seeing air raid all game, I'm going to be a happy boy. I'll tell you that much.
I am so fired up for the Chiefs Dolphins game, which is actually going to be in Frankfurt, Germany. Kind of a bummer that it wasn't Tyreek Hill making his return back to Arrowhead. Got a bunch of friends that are going out for that game. But this should be a really, really good one tonight. And we'll get to our leans on this. Okay, before we start breaking down our picks, Pat, let me start with you. Give me your, say, two best bets against the spread when you're starting out your card this week for parlay consideration, as well as where you're starting individual bets, ATS.
So I think this is a really challenging slate. A lot of divisional play, which is really tough to pick. I know it's so cliche, but when you go up against rivalries, when you have favorites, or I should say underdogs that are our favorite, it's just really tough. But the one game that I really like this is my best bet. This might be one of my favorite bets of the season. It's the Seattle Seahawks -7.5. And it's crazy. I feel better about the Seahawks than with them losing that game last week. I know they lost, but they should have won that game.
I agree.
They should have won that game. If it
Eight
wasn't for
times in the red zone, 8 times in the red zone, and they scored 13 points.
Crazy, absolutely nuts. And that's what ultimately killed them. Their defense looked so good in that second half. They completely stifled the Bengals. They made great halftime adjustments. They only allowed 52 yards in the second half and gave up just 3 points. I think this team is ready to take that next step. And I think they will learn that you cannot only score once in the red or twice in the red zone. It just can't happen. That is something that clearly has plagued them. And I think the fact that you look on the other side, don't get me wrong. At the start of the year, we're talking about the Cardinals and how great and pesky of a team. Well, I think that time has come and gone. I think they've come back down to earth. And I think we can now say it. They stink. They're not a good football team. They've been outscored by 50 points in their 3-game losing skid. Opposing quarterbacks have completed 70.9% of their passes against this defense. And they have the 4th worst opponent QBR at 101.3. They're also not very good against the run either, giving up 4.5 yards per play, which is a top or a bottom 10 in the league.
Well,
I think
tell me about that just quickly on their inability to stop the run. I mean, they had a pretty nice first half. They were leading at the half against the Rams last week.
Yep.
I had them at plus 7.5. And the Rams came out and gave it to Kyron Williams 7 or 8 straight times, and they were eating up 8, 10, 13 yards. And I think once McVay realized that they just cannot stop us on the ground, that's all they did in the second half, and they cruised the victory. So, if Seattle can get that running game going, which I think they should be able to at home, that should be a big, big part of controlling the game.
I think either way, like I think in the first half that it's a lot of Geno, it's a lot of dip and dunks, it's a lot of mid-range, and I think they can pick apart that defense. And then once they get a big lead, Kenneth Walker is going to get a heavy, heavy dosage of running the ball. Geno, I think, is a little bit banged up here, which does concern me a little bit. But with that being said, Kenneth Walker III is an absolute unit and is turning into just a touchdown machine. I don't have it in front of me. He's not quite at CMC level for consecutive touchdowns, but I think his touchdown number is at minus 143, which is remarkable for such a young running back. So I think the Seahawks cruise to victory here. I think this is a game where you say, okay, wow, this Seahawks team is legit. They're not a championship contender, but they're a playoff contender, and they're a team that maybe could make some noise in the postseason. My other one, again, I know I don't bet on the Bills, but in terms of games that I like, that 8.5 is the Bills by 8.5. I like that one a lot. Already went into that. This one's tough for me, but I think I like the Lions at 3.5. And if we're building something for a parlay, I think I like them at plus 3.5. Because I know right now it's at just plus the 3. So if we're building a parlay, I don't mind buying the points there. I know it's scary. They're going up against a really good defense in the Ravens, and it is outside. We know that the Lions are the indoor cats, so they play great in great weather. I talked about this last week, but I don't know, man. I just think this Lions team's built different. I could see this totally coming down to a field goal, and the fact that if we can get that half point, I feel pretty comfortable with the Lions, but that's probably my third favorite, and I just really like this story about the Lions. I would not be opposed to just continue to ride with them until everyone fall off.
Listen, everyone's in love with the Lions, and I get it. I got my spidey senses are tingling about this game, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think about the backfield right now. Montgomery's out, the third stringer's out there. It sounds like Jahmyr Gibbs. And listen, if you have him in fantasy, you're happy that he might be able to get into a backfield where he is the guy. But this is a tough spot for Detroit, and I don't know. I'm very interested to see how this one plays out. And to me, it's a very, very tough one to bet. Jake, where are you at? What are the top couple games on your card?
Yeah, I mean, Pat laid a lot of good ones out there. I think the one I'll go to, and I've been looking at this game, total wise, but in terms of the spread, I kind of lean Rams right now. Rams minus 3.5. I'm not huge on the Steelers. The only time I'm really betting the Steelers is when they're playing the NFC North. I know you talk about, the AFC North. I know you talk about that all the time. That's really the only time I'm riding with them. It looks like TJ Watt hasn't been practicing, so that's a bit of a concern. I know the Rams got Kyron Williams out, but I think the Rams are one of the more underrated teams in the league. They took care of business last week against the Cards. Their 3 losses have come to the Niners, who we know are good, the Eagles, who we assume are pretty good, and then the Bengals. We're not really sure on the Bengals yet, but that Bengals defense has proven week to week that they're getting better and better. So it's not like they've really had some bad losses by any means. And I'm not high on Pittsburgh's offense. Their defense is really what's been keeping them in games, what's been winning them games. And I just feel like I look ahead at the schedule for the Rams. I think they're going to Dallas next week and then going to Lambeau the week after. We're starting to get into the colder times now. those two games aren't going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. So it just feels like one of those games. You're at home to Pittsburgh. I know, in LA, it never really feels like home. You're kind of getting out crowded in your own building a lot of the time. But I think the Rams are a team that I can get behind this week. Obviously with Kupp, Nakua, Stafford, I believe in those guys. So
I want to jump in real quickly here on this Rams Steelers game. The Steelers are 53-31-4 against the spread as an underdog against Tomlin. Even in the post Ben Roethlisberger era, they're 9-5-1 against the spread as an underdog. But as long as Matt Canada is the offensive coordinator, I don't give a crap about those numbers. This team sucks. I've been saying it all year long. Everyone talks, well, the offense isn't very good. The defense, no, the defense is bad too. This offense, though, is so inept. They are painful to watch. Through the first 6 weeks of the season, they're 29th in EPA and 32nd in success rate. This is an awful football team, and I agree with you. I think the Rams are one of the most underrated teams in the NFL. Are they a wagon? No, but they're very solid. And Sean McVay has a kid on the way. He made it very clear that kid is going to be a football guy. He is waiting until that game is over, and then he'll be born. I love that pick, Jake. Love it.
Yeah, well, you guys are going to love one of my best bets coming up in a minute here. Let's get to we'll start off with Dusty's. And Dusty's rolling out the Lions right out of the gate. I mean, listen, he's a Lions guy. I understand he's feeling it right now, as a lot of people are with Detroit. +3 right now is the number. And that, as we speak, when he got it in, it was -114. We're looking at the Lions -115 right now. If you do want to get it to 3.5, it is in at -130. So we've talked about that game a little bit. I mentioned to you, Dusty loves the Bills this week. And that seems to be somewhat of a consensus play, certainly with the three of you guys. Definitely a candidate for the partner parlay. Buffalo -8.5. And he's also on the Commanders. Listen, you know me. I'm always willing to throw the left hand up for Washington. They're going to the Giants. And listen, I got a lot of respect for what the Giants did hanging in there with the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. But when you really break it down, that Giants team is absolutely decimated. They don't have the playmakers. I guess if Saquon Barkley can go to have a massive game, that would be big for them. But he still isn't really even back to, I think, close to 100%, and they're getting what they can out of him. And obviously the quarterback situation is a big, big issue. The Commanders, for their part, probably didn't deserve to win last week against Atlanta. I mean, if you look at what the two respective offenses did, Atlanta put up 400 total yards. The Commanders were under 200, but they were opportunistic, and Desmond Ridder absolutely folded in the clutch with one of the worst picks I can remember in the NFL and at crunch time in a long time. I mean, basically just giving the ball away and losing that game. So Dusty's in on the Commanders at -2.5. And that is one that, I mean, as badly as they looked last week, they always play the Giants tight. I think they've got a lot more going for them right now. And I think the aftermath of that loss, the way they lost, is going to be tough for the Giants to overcome. It's almost into next year's season. So Dusty's got the Commanders at -2.5. And then he's got Miami +2.5. We sort of went through that game. I'll talk about it in a minute. But Miami +2.5. So those are Dusty's best bets as he sent in earlier this morning. So let's get to mine. I love the Commanders here. Washington -2.5. If this was 3, I'm probably not laying it. I don't really even worry, to be honest, very much about playing at home or playing on the road right now. These teams, to be honest, I mean, how much support are the Giants getting at home right now after the way that the season's gone right now? I think a lot of people are going to be ready to go. Hell, there might be some Commanders fans making the trip up from DC to get in there. So, I mean, I really don't think home field is going to play a big, big part of it. You got one team that's got a decimated defense that's with a backup quarterback, and you've got another team that I think feels like they got away with one last week. And I'm actually pretty confident that Ron Rivera has his team prepared to be a lot better than they were in stealing that win in the Georgia Dome or in Mercedes-Benz Stadium last week. So I'm going to start it off. I'm riding with Dusty on the Washington Commanders, but I'm taking the Steelers. And I was fired up today when I saw that it got up to plus 3.5. Listen, you rolled out what the Steelers are as underdogs. And I mean, to be honest, we talked about this on the Lock Shop after week 5. We looked at the NFC North and went, this team has been god-awful all season long. And yet they're in first place in the division right now at 3-2. I do think that the bye week is going to be big for Pittsburgh coming into this one. I mean, you guys are right. Matt Canada's had a disaster. They're chanting to fire him at Pittsburgh Penguins games. The whole opener was taken over by Steeler fans chanting fire Canada. And I think Kenny Pickett has still, has got a long ways to go. But I really do think that with this extra planning time, they're going to find a way to get the ball to George Pickens a little bit more, establish the run. And when it comes down to it, this is a bet on the Pittsburgh defense. I mean, even in the games that they've won, not only have they kept them in games, they've often made game-breaking plays that have just completely flipped the game. And when we're talking about getting that many points against a team that, I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sold on in the Rams, I'm going to take the points with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I have a feeling at the end of Sunday, we're going to be going, I have no idea how they did it, but there they are, the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether they win or lose, playing in a close game, coming down to the stretch. So I'm taking Pittsburgh at plus 3.5. I don't normally take the Chiefs. And I will say this, if this was a game where the Chargers weren't in the Widowmaker position, as our pal Rob Pizzola called it. Listen, this is an absolute disaster of a schedule for the Chargers this week. They played on Monday, and now they go to Arrowhead on Sunday afternoon, a place where they have been good in the past. Justin Herbert famously found out that he was starting a game 10 seconds before he was in the huddle in his first ever game and played his ass off there. And they have actually won in Arrowhead in the last couple seasons. But if you look historically at teams that play on Monday night and then play on Sunday against a team that was playing on Thursday or coming off a bye, it is an avalanche on the team with the schedule advantage. And here's the other thing. I mean, this is 3 extra days for Andy Reid and an elite coaching staff to prepare for the Chargers. Meanwhile, they were getting down to business on Tuesday. I'm sure they'd done some pre-scouting. I mean, they're in the division. They're all over that. But when you think about, I mean, just on even time, there's a huge advantage to the Chiefs from a preparation side and on a coaching standpoint. I think that gets exponentially cranked up when you talk about the difference in time to prepare for this game. I'm going to lay the 5.5 with the Chiefs. I will say this, though. If this was a normal time, I think I'd be on the Chargers. But to me, this is a spot bet that I'm not sure the Chargers can overcome. And listen, they're not very good to begin with. And I think the Chiefs have sort of been playing possum throughout here. I mean, hey, listen, shout out to Harrison Butker for that big field goal to actually get the cover last week. I'm not fazed, though, by the 5.5. I think this is Kansas City's game. And I think this is a really tough spot for the Chargers. So we're going to take the Chiefs and lay the 5 points at home. And then we're going to go down to the Sunday nighter. I mentioned Dusty's on the Dolphins. I'm leaning Eagles in this one. I'm actually not leaning Eagles. I'm excited to bet the Eagles in this game at 2.5. I think that this is an overreaction to what happened last week against the Jets. I mean, listen, if Jalen Hurts throws another terrible pick like he did in crunch time last week, they're not going to win this game. But part of what's so fascinating about this is a matchup of 2 very different teams. One, the fastest, most creative offensive team right now in the National Football League, going up against the blunt force power of the Philadelphia Eagles. And listen, I think back to that Buffalo-Miami game earlier this year when the Dolphins were running around like crazy. They got kind of stopped in their tracks. I mean, they did put up some points on the board, and this certainly leans to that over that we had talked about before for this game. But I think in a lot of ways, this is a get-right game for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's going to be a great test. I don't see them losing 2 games in a row. And as much as Miami has been really, really impressive, they're moving up a couple weight classes, and they're going up against a Philly team that is going to be in an ornery mood. That home field advantage will be significant, and a Sunday nighter with all those Philly maniacs crushing beers for 8 hours before they get to the link. So yeah, and I mean, the fact that this is 2.5, I'm on Philly right here. I think that the power of the Eagles takes precedent over what Miami's been doing, and certainly we'll see what the Philly defense can do, because I mean, listen, they have been solid pretty much all season long. I mean, it was the Philly offense that flipped that game, and the Jet defense, to their great credit. So those are the best bets. Let's think parlay right now. Dusty
One thing off your Chiefs thing, and I know you know the Chiefs better than anyone. There's always like this narrative, like Chiefs don't cover the spread. They just play close. Well, that's not the case this year. They're 4-2 against the spread. Like they've figured out ways not just to win, they've covered. And maybe because the spreads aren't as maybe that's more of the case now, that we're not seeing them as double-digit favorites just game after game, because the offense maybe isn't as electric as they were last year. For me, I love that one. I think that the Chiefs, I think that, this is not just a play on the Chiefs and how good their defense is, because I mean, the Chargers offense is scary, but their defense is just no good. Absolutely no good. So I really agree with you there. I like the Chiefs in that spot as well.
Beautiful. So like, here are some options. Obviously, we're both on the Commanders. I mean, that's
Good with that.
certainly a candidate. You guys are all on the Bills. I mean, 3 of the 4 guys on the Bills. I think Dusty would be certainly fine with that, and I can live with that. I mean, you guys have made some great points, and I mean, I'm certainly New England has done nothing to give me any faith that they're going to all of a sudden wake up in this game right now. So that certainly is a possibility. I always like to take points at some point, but to be honest, it's really hard to make a case for many of the underdogs this week right now. And I think some of the lines really lean to it. We haven't talked about the Atlanta-Tampa game. To me, that's almost a stay away game. I mean, I don't know what to expect from either of those teams week in and week out. The other game that we haven't touched on that to me is really interesting is Cleveland at Indy. Cleveland, I mean, coming off that massive win against the Niners, apparently gets Deshaun Watson back. To me, I don't really care who the Cleveland quarterback is right now. That team is anchored by arguably the best defense in the league. And Gardner Minshew's a hell of a reliever, but I'm not sure that he's the starter that they need him to be. And that is what is going to be. So Cleveland's another kind of short favorite that I do like. And I know you guys are out on
Wouldn't that be very Cleveland-y for them to have such a big letdown spot against a inferior team in the Colts? Like that just, again, my lean for sure was Browns, especially when it was at -2.5. Now it's going up to 3. So obviously that indicates that the public's starting to hit the Browns. But I just feel like that could be such an emotional letdown spot for this club because of how big of a win that was. That's certainly scary. You mentioned the Steelers. I know both of us were against that. I mean, you do make some great points. I don't know that you are right about the defense. The defense comes up in big plays, because what they've given up on average the 3rd most yards in the NFL. Only the Chargers and the historically bad Denver Broncos have given up more per game. They're averaging 389.4, but they're only averaging 22. So maybe they've got that bend don't bring. And like you said, JJ Watt's making crazy plays. So the more you talk to me, the more I dislike my pick. But at the same time, I don't know if I can stomach it for the partner parlay. But we do got to find something here.
Right. My initial play on that game, I know we just do spreads, so I mean it probably doesn't matter. My initial play on that game was under. I see the number, it's one of the bigger numbers on the board, and it just feels like one of those games that's going to be sloppy. It's going to kind of come down to what could be the last play of the game. I don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in, or we just get off that game and try to focus focus our eyes somewhere else. But yeah, I'm on the board with Commanders. I mean, and then what else did we say?
Bills
Well,
now. So
Bills,
just those,
I like.
just Commanders minus 2.5, Bills minus 8.5. We're looking at plus 258. So
yeah, I mean, we've got. I mean, I think we're good on the Bills. If we want to throw the Chiefs on, I'm fine with that at 5.5. And hey, maybe we take 3 bigger favorites and hope that they run away with it and think that these numbers aren't good. I have no issue with Seattle, and I don't think Dusty would have on that either. I mean, to me, this is one of those games that I mean, it's a get right game, I think, for Seattle at home. And I am so with you, Pat. I think the fact that they lost that game last week in the fashion that they did gives me a lot more confidence that they will rise to the occasion at home in front of the 12s against an overmatched divisional opponent. So, I mean, I would say Seattle is certainly a possibility. And of course, Washington and Kansas City. I mean, I think we take 2 of those 3 games, put them with Buffalo, and make that the partner parlay.
I think we have consensus with the Commanders. I think we're all in agreement of that. So the Bills and the Commanders, if we keep those 2, if you put in the Seahawks at minus 7.5, it's looking at plus 581 before the little push from the fellas. If we go Chiefs at minus 5.5, that's a clean plus 600. Again, I'm open to both. Obviously, the Seahawks is my favorite bet of the week, but Huss, you laid out this Chiefs game perfectly. The Widowmaker or whatever you want to call it. Not only that, just the fact that Patrick Mahomes just completely dominates this division. And again, even if it's a tight, close game, would it not surprise you down the stretch if Mahomes has a game-winning drive because of a silly mistake that the Chiefs or that the Chargers made, and they end up winning by 7? Or it wouldn't be surprising if this is the game where the offense does wake up because the Chargers defense is so bad. So I'm good with either one of those.
Well, I mean, Jake, what do you think? Chiefs or Chargers? I mean, I will put just have the Chiefs on the ride with Huss if we want to go with Seattle. Let me just see what the timing of that game. The Seattle's a late game.
I mean, listen, the more we talk about the Seahawks, the more I'm starting to like them. I'm just looking at, some of their games this year. Like coming off that loss last week where we talked about that they probably should have won. They're going to come into this one not so happy. They're back home. You got the 12th man there. I think I'm starting to, get more and more on board with Seattle. At first, when I was looking, I didn't love the big number, but, the cards really aren't that great. Seattle can put up the points. Like, it's not going to take much for them to cover that 7.5. I think
there's a lot more film out on Dobbs, and you can tell that's happening. He's not playing as well. The defense is starting to get exposed.
Well, again, I know the Seattle defense too. That Witherspoon is an absolute stud.
Beast.
And as I said,
Seattle could easily be 4-1 right now, right? I mean, look at they lost to the Rams in week 1 in a stinker. And then they beat the Lions, who we know are a good football team. They beat the Panthers, who are whatever. They beat the Giants, who are whatever. And then they get a tough one off the bye to the Bengals. It's going to be hard for me to see Seattle not coming out alive and well for this game. Get to 4-2. They're still in that division. I mean, now that San Fran's lost, they're right in the mix for the playoffs in the NFC. So, I mean, I think Carroll gets the guys up. I think Seattle. I think that's where I'm going to go because you're going to go Chiefs anyways, Huss.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, I kind of like the way this shakes out with the ride with us. So here we go. Partner parlay, Bills minus 8.5, Commanders minus 2.5, and the Seattle Seahawks minus 7.5. That'll be our 3-game partner parlay. We'll see what that ends up in the Coolbet exclusives. And then I've often taken a pick outside of my other picks to make the ride with us, but I'm actually just going to focus in on the 3, staying away from Washington. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh plus 3.5, Chiefs minus 5.5, and the Eagles minus 2.5. And you know what? It will be a good spot for us. I mean, if we're able to get those first 2 games in, listen, if you really need a winner, and we can get to that point, you do have a hedge opportunity going in, taking the Dolphins with that number. So again,
Huss, what was your middle? Oh, Chiefs, right? Chiefs are on there?
Pittsburgh plus 3.5, Chiefs minus 5.5, and Eagles minus 2.5. We'll go with that for the ride with us. Let me take a quick look. Sorry,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, no, go ahead. I'll throw out my ride with Patty after that one.
Yeah, shout out to Marshall Caron. What up, Marsh? In chat, he's got a 5-leg parlay, a Buffalo -7, the over in the Miami Philly game. We like that one as well. Vegas money line, Chiefs -5, Niners -2.5, and over 40 in the game total. That's at 20-1. Nicely done. And Richard Croft, what's up, Richard? Jimmy G is doubtful starter in Vegas and Chicago, and Fields has a thumb issue. I like the under 37.5.
I like it.
Vegas on the road average points is 14.7, and the Bears at home 20.3. I like that one. Well, we haven't even touched.
Gotta take care of the ball on that one. Gotta take care of the ball. Like I can smell a bad turnover that leads to 6. Anyways, I agree though. It's ugly, but I like it.
Well, and the funny thing is, we often look. I mean, that you just nailed it, Jake. I mean, the danger to the under in those games is not these offenses waking up. It's the offenses being so bad that they turn the football over and teams are getting the ball on the 15 or even worse, the defense is taken in for pick 6.
That's also a field goal game, guys. It's not in prime time. That's a field goal game.
That absolutely is a field goal game. All right, Patty, quickly before we wrap it up, you got one ready to go just to let the people know about for the exclusives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to go Lions plus 3.5. I just think this Lions team is the real deal, and I think this could be an exclamation point on their season. And then I went with a couple of totals. Over 51.5 Dolphins and Eagles. That's a principal play. That's just one that, especially if this parlay is alive, it's going to make the sweat even better. And then I'm going under 40.5 Colts and Browns. We know what that Colts offense is about, and we know that the Browns defense is so legit. I think that one could be a really, really low scoring game.
That's another one, Patty. Take care of the football, Gardner. You didn't do it last week. I was on it. Colts. I'm like, Colts, baby. Like Gardner Minshew. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, why am I on the Colts right now? It's embarrassing.
Yeah, that was far from a nice homecoming for Minshew. There was no Minshew mania back in Jacksonville last week. And hey, shout out to the Jags. They've got these wins put together. They've now kind of get to a point where they can rest a little bit. They'll have a bye coming up later on. They're actually in great shape. You got to be happy with that future total.
Quickly, what is the scheduling that you go to London for 2 weeks and then you play 2 weeks in a row after that?
And then the second week on Thursday.
It's nuts.
It's nuts.
That's part of the reason why I was on the Saints last night. I'm like, man, this schedule is going to catch up to these guys at some point, but it didn't. Shout out to Trevor Lawrence. That was a heck of a game, but would have been nice if it was a little quieter when it came to points. Yeah. Well, here we go. Okay, boys, we've got it all, folks. You know where to find all these. We'll have them up shortly in the Coolbet exclusives. Look for those numbers and get on them early before everyone bets them down. That's always a great spot. Check out the play of the day on the Coolbet socials a little later on today. Looking to go 5-0 for the week. And I'm sure we'll have a little content coming up this week as we head into the weekend. I'll be out in Edmonton checking out the Oiler game. So for any of you ESTers out there, if you're at the game, say hi. And fellas, we'll look forward to. I've changed my flight. I have an earlier flight, so I'm back in time for the Chiefs-Chargers game. So let's hope the early slate goes well, and we've got lots still alive when we get to those afternoon kickoffs. And then obviously enjoy what should be an awesome Sunday nighter. Well, Miami and Philly, many differing views on this one, but that's going to be a highly rated game, and I think there'll be a lot of action at the book on this one. Again, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code LOCKSHOP on that first deposit. Hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200. Get into the exclusives. Ride with us on the partner parlay. Fellas, have a great weekend, and good luck. We'll see you Monday in the Lock Shop, guys.
Thanks for having us, Huss.
And that was the Lock Shop right here on Edmonton Sports Talk and EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Huss, Pat, and Jake there getting you set for the weekend in the National Football League. Coming up very shortly in about 9 minutes time or so. We will have the Oilers stream, myself and Tom Gazzola. I'm Matt Iwanek for those listening on the stream wondering who's talking right now. Matt Iwanek here, and then like I said, Tom Gazzola. We'll catch up with him from his place downtown as the Edmonton Oilers getting set to practice at 1 o'clock. Oilers get taking on the Jets tomorrow night down at Rogers Place. Oilers stream pregame show with Tommy tomorrow gets going at 6:30, but Tom and I will recap the loss of the Oilers yesterday to the Philadelphia Flyers and look ahead to that game tomorrow against the Jets as the Oilers are 1-3 on the season. But if you're looking for just a little more play when it comes to Coolbet and this weekend, if you want to sprinkle a little bit of dollars out there, the Edmonton Sports Talk parlay it's live. And it's all Edmonton for this parlay. We did it last weekend. We're doing it again today and this weekend. It's betting on the city of Edmonton and betting on our teams to win. And if they do, or do well at least. It's one of them isn't to win, but do well. And you could be walking with a little bit of cash. The Edmonton Sports Talk parlay for this weekend. The Alberta Golden Bears, they're in Winnipeg to take on Manitoba tonight. We have them at -6.5. The Edmonton Elks are in Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers tomorrow. We have the Elks team total over 18.5 points as well. We've got the Edmonton Oilers to beat the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow. The money line of the Oilers. So again, Golden Bears -6.5. Edmonton Elks team total over 18.5, and the Oilers to win. That's plus 335. So if Edmonton has a big weekend starting today, going into tomorrow with our teams, and if you put some money on this, you have a good weekend as well. Not one, just because your teams have won, but two, then also maybe taking a little bit of cash. We took Coolbet for a little bit of cash earlier this week with the Edmonton Sports Talk parlay when the Oilers were out in Nashville. So we'll see what can happen tonight leading into tomorrow when it comes to our Edmonton Sports Talk parlay. As I mentioned, the Oil Stream pregame show tomorrow, 6:30. The Edmonton Oilers practicing today, 1 o'clock. We'll get Tommy's thoughts on this and how unusual this is and how expected this was. Flying back from Philadelphia today or last night is, did he envision that the Oilers would be on the ice, or is this a sign that this team? We all heard Jay Woodcroft's comments yesterday and him dropping the swear for perhaps the first time as a coach. Tommy saying on the Hangout earlier today he hadn't heard Jay in all of his time knowing Jay, which goes back to his time as assistant coach under Todd McLellan here in Edmonton, knowing him to swear. So how much was this situation where he's trying to just show how frustrated he is and motivate his team to get going? But maybe this Oiler team knows that things aren't going well. They need to get on the ice to get a practice before the game tomorrow. So we'll get Tommy's thoughts on the Oilers practicing today, on their game yesterday, and what's going on with Evan Bouchard. Why isn't he producing a little bit more this year? I know he's one of those players for a lot of people. They're frustrated with how he played last night, especially. Look, we could look at that whole Edmonton Oilers team and, talk about their play yesterday and how it wasn't good enough and the effort wasn't there across the board with this team last night in Philadelphia. But I think quite a few mistakes from Evan Bouchard. He's drawing quite a bit of the attention tonight. We'll figure out what Tommy thinks goaltending. I think it's pretty simple. We're all going to be looking at Stuart Skinner getting the start in that tomorrow. I think that's just, even if the Oilers won yesterday, I think that would have been the plan. But lots to get to on the Oil Stream with Tom Gazzola coming up here right away on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, as well as those watching on our YouTube channel, which we will redirect you right over to the Oil Stream. Just make sure your autoplay is on. And be sure to subscribe to Edmonton Sports Talk on our YouTube channel. Started at less than 2,000 subscribers when Edmonton Sports Talk began. We're closing in on 5,000. We're at 4,724, so less than 3,000 subscriptions away from getting to 5,000. So if you are watching on YouTube and have yet to subscribe to the Edmonton Sports Talk YouTube channel, please just hit that subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. And then just a couple of other notes for Edmonton Sports Talk here before we take a quick pause, and then I bring Tommy in and we can get the Oil Stream going and all your Oiler discussion going. Your thoughts also welcome, 780-218-9999 in the Paris Jewelers inbox. But the Nasty Club, if you haven't signed up, 3 tiers that we launched this week. We've got a monthly membership for $4.99 a month. We'll eventually have bonus offers from our great sponsors. Right now, you have access to bonus content, which will include the post-show show, which the boys have been doing every morning. And then we have 2 annual packages, $79.99, with a whole bunch of draws. You can get into them perks, including a Nasty certified numbered card. But you also get an Edmonton Sports Talk shirt and an Edmonton Sports Talk Camps Fire style mug. And then for $24.99 plus GST, we throw in a hat into that mix. So you can sign up to the Nasty Club if you haven't already right now. It's at sportstalk.com. At the very top, it says Nasty Club. And coming next week, I'm hoping Monday. It seems like we'll be able to go Monday. If anything happens, it might just be delayed a day, but we'll have a merch store pop up for everyone to buy merchandise if you just want to buy individual pieces of merchandise. That will open up on Monday. It'll be pre-sale orders. We'll take the pre-sale orders until mid-November, around November 15th, and then we'll be able to put that order in and get things to you by December 15th or a little bit earlier. So in time for Christmas. But also, depending how things go, maybe we'll throw in an order earlier if the numbers are looking pretty good. We're getting a whole bunch of orders. We'll get those in so we can get them to you quicker. But if you are a Nasty Club member, we're hoping by the end of October you'll get your merchandise. So Nasty Club members, you'll get a little bit of priority access to the Edmonton Sports Talk merchandise. That was the Lock Shop with Huss, Jake, and Pat. Coming up next, the Oil Stream. Myself, Tom Gazzola, will get you set for Oilers Jets tomorrow. Recap Oilers and Flyers. We'll do that very momentarily. Thanks for tuning in to the Lock Shop as well as this little, Oil Stream pregame show. Have a great afternoon, and I'll talk with you in mere minutes.